And thank you very much for joining us on this International Youth Day. Earlier in the day, we had stated that we're going to be having a very, very interesting 2-hour discussion or broadcast, really, to celebrate International Youth Day. And I'm not doing it alone. I am also joined by Blessings Mosugu.
Good morning, Africa. My name is Blessings Mosugu, and it's International Youth Day. Now, this is the day where there is a platform to bring about the voices of the youth and bring the attention of the international community to issues that bother the youth. Now, Oselge, it's interesting to know that this is not just a day to celebrate the youth, but it's also a day to create awareness and also mobilize the youth to manage resources, especially when it comes to issues that bother on youth involvement in the world. Now, we see a lot of youth doing amazing things. I was given an example to one of my friends about the climate change activist, Greta Thunberg, who is just 19 years old. Yeah. And because of her OCD, what we call obsessive compulsion disorder, she made her parents start to, count their the carbon emissions. And because of that, she was able to influence her world. So these are things that the youth can do. And it's great to see that there is a day set aside to celebrate the youth and also bring to the attention the things that they can contribute to the society.
Absolutely. And of course, it has been celebrated for many years now. The theme for this year's International Youth Day is Intergenerational Solidarity, creating a world for all ages. And that's basically, from the United Nations to let us know that it's not just a day for the young people alone, but, to see ways that we can start conversations that bring people together to understand the importance of the youth and, of course, see how, much more powerful the youth, young people across the world can be in the future. And those are some of the conversations that we will be having today. We hope that, of course, it's going to be very, very fruitful. We're joined this morning by Ina Hengari, who is a member of Parliament, Namibia, Windhoek, Namibia. And of course, we're also joined by Dr. Faith Wambia, who's the founder and president Youth Up Global here in Nigeria, in Port Harcourt. Thank you both for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Now, we will be talking about engaging the youth in mainstream development and governance. And I'm going to be starting with you, Ina. Now, how do we encourage the mainstream of young people's votes or voices and their actions and, of course, their initiatives? What are ways by which we can encourage the mainstreaming of these things, let the world see how the young people are participating in the societal reforms?
Thank you so much for our opportunity to add my voice to this conversation. And I must also use this medium to wish all young people there, both by age and at heart, a happy International Youth Day, speaking from the West Africa, Nigeria, and a city called Port Harcourt. Yes, so we are on a very important discussion that affects young people globally. And good thing that United Nations brought this theme into generational solidarity, creating opportunities for all ages. It is important that we emphasize that we should not get tired of having this type of forum where we discuss. So the first thing we need to keep doing is to talk about it, to create awareness, all civil societies, all groups, whether they're NGO, whether you are having your own business, in any area you are operating from, you need to always imbibe and bring this culture of creating programs that will support young people. The idea behind the theme of this year's IYD celebration is that we want to encourage not just the youth, but we want to also encourage the older population to see how they can synergize with the young population to support them by creating structures and platforms that would help them to become better at what they do. We cannot just leave the whole thing for the young people, so there is need to be inclusive and intentional about it. You would also recall that there has been a problem of lack of trust, in the system, especially for young people. So young people have lost what I call trust in governance and in political leaders. So because these people over the years have failed them, during campaigns for elections, they come with different promises, manifestos are read, and they also distribute some food items temporarily, and they also give some cash gifts. That is just for them to buy their ticket to continue in what I call the vicious circle of poor governance. These are issues that we need to quickly talk about, to discuss, to ensure that the political leaders, the older population, will not go on to take advantage of young people, because why this continues is the fact that young people do not have capacity in terms of their economic life. Once you are able to build structures that are able to empower these people economically, they will not be able to sell their mandates. So these are reasons why we will not get tired of talking about building empowerment programs and structures, not just the one that you come on TV to just announce or say, I have done this, I've done that. It is actually to begin to work with young people in rural areas, underserved communities, and unrepresented youth, to begin to bring them on board and see that we are making the right difference.
All right.
So I will just pause here, and I'm sure that, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, still in the same vein, you know, I want you to speak on how young people, because I remember across Nigeria a few years ago, there was this very, very loud call for a change in the constitution to allow young people, you know, be able to participate in governance. They're not too young to run bill and whatnot. You know, and then at some point, some people felt, you know, like it was a waste of time, you know, because you might be young, but you can't afford to even run. You can't afford to even be in those positions. There's many, many loopholes that exist. So I want you to speak on, and we'll get back to this, but I want you to speak on how young people can get involved in governance and development without necessarily being in office. What ways would you enlighten the young people across the continent that they can still be involved in governance, they can still be involved in development without necessarily running for office?
That's a great way to look at this conversation. Yes. So without having to be active like leaders holding political offices, young people can also participate, and I will give you how that is possible. And it's not far-fetched. We've seen progress so far. A whole lot of work has started going on in our startup ecosystem. A lot of young people are beginning to change the narrative, bringing in a lot of FDI, and also brought in a lot of funding through their businesses and their ventures. So when we begin to build, you know, economy and politics, you can't separate the two. They are just brothers and sisters. So so long as you have that economic structure and you're able to take care of at least those basic necessities of life, and you are able to take care of yourself and other people around you, then it is possible for you to stand your ground and say, this is what I believe in and this is not what I don't believe in. So we would want to see that we ensure that young people get more empowered on their own, you know, to be able to set up what works for them, and then be able to demand for accountability. It is only when you have fed yourself that you've taken care of that basic necessity. If you look at the Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you don't take care of the first, which has to do with your basic necessities, you will not move to talk about security, you will not talk about self-actualization and all that. So not get the best of young people when they still feel hungry and when they are still fighting to make ends meet. This is very critical that we must have to address. So once we are able to address these, you know, fundamental issues, I believe that we will not ask young people to demand for accountability, to talk about what is their right. You know, they say that he who doesn't have money doesn't know his right. We have a balance in Nigeria that we used to say it. You know, so it is only when you are empowered economically that you are able to start demanding certain things that are due to you. So I would say that the first thing that we need to do to encourage young people to be able to participate is to see that there are opportunities available and that we begin to do more of this. Sensitization, awareness, education across all platforms, all institutions, on how young people can, you know, participate politically. Political participation, education, and awareness need to also be on top there. So these are these practical areas, ways we'll be able to bring young people to actually participate, not by holding offices, but now by calling for accountability, by demanding what is theirs. But do not forget, they can only be intentional and committed at doing this when the stomach infrastructure has been fixed.
All right, Dr. Faith, still talking about youth participation and then involving the youth in the decision-making mechanism. There is a thin line between listening to the youth's agitation and actually involving them in decision-making. So you have made reference to all of this and you've extensively answered that. But then I want us to clarify, is it just listening to the youths complain on the mainstream media, or are there other ways that youths can be involved, like Osaoge said, without being particularly present there? Are there other ways that youths can be encouraged to be involved in this decision-making mechanism without just having to listen to them alone?
Yeah, so away from listening, we also need to begin to create programs for youth to also feel that they are part of the system, you know. So I also would encourage governments across nations, especially for us in Africa, that we need to bring in, you know, programs that are able to, you know, encourage young people, you know, outside just listening. So we need to go to them, you know, and ensure that, okay, fine, what is it that is the problem? What is this challenge here? Okay, the government is providing this opportunity here and creating this. So how will you be able to onboard them into those programs? You know, this whole thing, it's a whole lot of work for the government, and that is where the problem has been over the years, especially for us in Africa. We, as much as we want to say young people got to do something, I will tell you what they have to do. But the thing is that what they have to do largely depends on what the system provides and how the system is structured. So I understand your question. How would they participate without being active? There is little or no, because if you are not given a platform to be heard, if you're not given a platform to air your views, I doubt any other way, you know, that you want to make a significant, you know, mark in that what you're yearning for. So definitely we need to see that young people are given opportunities. That has to be, because if you look at the theme of this year's International Day for Youth celebration, it talks about intergenerational solidarity. So that solidarity is what we are discussing, and that youth has to be engaged in mainstream development and governance. So there is no way we can paint it other than saying young people need to be included in the agenda of politics and economy, and the only way you can do that is begin to reach out to them. No other way. That is no other practical way. We could talk about every other theories, but these are practical ways that you could begin to engage young people by giving them opportunities to participate. I also want to make reference to the not too young to run that was signed, you know, after 2018 to date, and there has not been anything significant from it, because of course it is not just not too young to run. You still come down to the cost of, you know, conducting elections. You know, it is not easy for any young person if you don't want to compromise your standard. And this is also another thing entirely, because you may say, okay, I'm a young person and I've been given chance to run, but then someone is somewhere as a godfather and the person dictates and calls the shot, because he who pays the piper takes the tune. So these are issues. So these young people, because they don't have the capacity, the economic well-being, the economic potential and viability, they're not able to go in, you know, by themselves and get the things that they are looking for. So it comes down to that empowerment. It comes down to building those structures. Other than this, any other thing that we are doing will be chasing shadows. That's from me. Yeah.
All right, and I also like you to speak on, you know, the theme, you know, what we're currently addressing is engaging youth in mainstream development and governance. Something that you mentioned in passing before was stomach infrastructure, and, you know, the struggle with that. So I want your, you know, bits of advice, or maybe what your thoughts are concerning young people wanting to participate in governance, but having to deal with, you know, that aspect of it, you know, a failing economy, you know, high levels of unemployment, and of course, you know, their colleagues, you know, basically just going for stomach infrastructure and looking out for the highest bidder. So how would you think that, you know, the youths of 2022 can find their ways around these aspects?
the truth is that youth are already beginning to do something about themselves, because when you can't, when you're food once, twice, and then you're getting to the third times, four, and you begin to ask yourself certain questions whether you want to continue this way. So this is not business as usual. If you look at the political atmosphere in Nigeria and even across other African countries, you want to understand that young people are beginning to come all out and take what belongs to theirs and defend their mandate. So this is something that is interesting in this age. The 2022 young people are not just the 2000 or the 1999 when we started, when we started off the new wave of democracy in Nigeria. So we are beginning to see that hope, and if that momentum is maintained, I'm sure that we are going to see a whole lot, to change in days, in months, and years to come. So having said that, so the problem of infrastructure, the stomach infrastructure that we are discussing, and the fact that young people need to deal with that, and also be asked to bring in their integrity, to defend who their mandate is. So you find out that swings from time to time, because what must be fulfilled first must be fulfilled first for many of them. I remember a quote in the scripture by King David when he said, "God do not make me poor, such that I will steal." And he also said, "Do not make me so much rich that I will forget you." So you find out that there is a component of, if you don't deal with extreme poverty, you hardly would get good people, that some good people may have to compromise the values. Not necessarily that they wanted to compromise, because what would they do? And at some point, even in Israel of old, some persons, there was a time they had to, women had to bring their children to be slaughtered and killed for food. So these are things that happened, in the past that we're also seeing repeating now. It is not that going to be easy that young people would continuously defend their mandate, and also deal with stomach infrastructure. But this is what we have to do. What we have to do is to keep informing, keep creating this awareness, to let them know that, okay, fine, there is what we call delayed gratification, and there is what we call sacrifice, there's what we call patience, there's what we call planting and harvesting. Okay, now we have agreed we want to start planting for the future. So at this time, please do not complain so much about hunger. We know it is here in the air, but then let us all come all out to begin to make and create a future that we all need. So let us not be like Esau, that had to see just today and did not look into the future. So we need to begin to project for a better future by sacrificing, some uncomfortable situations now that we have to deal with in order to get a better future. So what that means is that somebody bringing 5,000 naira to you for you to sell your vote or your mandate, because you just have to get the pot of soup for now. You may need to sacrifice that pot of soup for now so that you can get much better tomorrow. So these are conversations we need to be having across all parts of the country, continent, and the world.
All right.
So I believe, yes.
Yeah, Dr. Faith, permit me to put you on the spot now. You are the founder of Youth Up Global in Port Harcourt, Nigeria. And we have talked about what the government can do to build platforms for the Nigerian youth and even the youth across Africa. So what is your initiative doing to achieve this goal?
Thank you very much. I accept that person on spot wholeheartedly. We've been working over the years that we are on Youth Up Global as a social enterprise supporting young people in various empowerment programs and youth development and inclusion. These are the three cardinal areas that we are interested in: youth development, youth empowerment, and youth inclusion. So in doing that, we'll be creating programs that would support young people to get trained and skilled up, because we discovered that one of the challenges for young people, especially in developing countries, is unemployment. Youth unemployment is at very high, and the rate is high and keep increasing. But then when we now looked at the reasons why there is this consistent hike and increase in youth unemployment, it is because of skill gap, not necessarily that there are no jobs. The jobs that are opening up are jobs that require some form of new skills. And that is the area we are playing in. So we are trying to ensure that young people, so we train them on digital skills, tech skills, and skills of future. So skills of the future, for future of work, to prepare, and to also understand that the world has moved from just being within your comfort zone, and then we are now in global citizenship. What it means that you are in Nigeria does not limit you from opportunities that you could also attract from other parts of the world. So a lot of young people within our ecosystem are beginning to assess opportunities outside of Nigeria and internationally. So that is the whole idea of building them digitally, creating avenues for them to get trained and skilled up. So generally, we have been able to do this. Over 1,000 persons have gained, in our programs in terms of digital skills, content writing that is also very booming, digital marketing, tech skills like web development, software development, product designs, and all these that are coming because startups are, the startup ecosystem is evolving and a lot of opportunities are opening up. So we need to train our young people in that space. That's what Youth Up Global is championing. Across other programs that we are also in, we also issue out scholarship programs to underserved young people in the rural areas and also work with other partners like Wikipedia Institute to also facilitate scholarship programs for business courses. These are few things that we've been working on and many more. Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Faith. It's great to see that these initiatives are being taken and hopefully it will definitely move us to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And just a quick reminder, the theme for this year's International Youth Day is Intergenerational Solidarity, creating a world for all ages. We'll take a short break. The conversation continues. We have many more people joining us in the course of this conversation, and you don't want to miss it.